done a lot more projects in Jamaica and in Trinidad than I have in Barbados as well. And that's because people don't see me, this young baby-faced person, coming up to them, and this is a person who I should give my business to and respect and pay for their value.
I had that same problem when I came back to Barbados. When I was in the Bahamas studying and everything like that, there are guys out there who are like 21, 22 years old, managing big 1,000-room establishment. And you come back here to Barbados and everybody want to tell you about, they want you to be a management trainee. It was a term that they bandied around then. And what they were offering you as remuneration was way cheaper than what you would have been making before you even went to study and you were working in the field. You say baby face, but your voice is deep. Whereas I would say that I probably got baby face too, probably all still, but my hair gray. And that's one of the reasons why I keep my gray hair. When I came back here, people had this perception, if you got the work experience, they'll tell you that they want the qualifications. And if you had the qualifications, they want the work experience. So when I came back and I said, well, I got both, then they tell me I'm too young. So
that's exactly where the problem is, because so I have a baby face as well. And I'm not a big fan of facial hair myself, but I literally had to grow my facial hair when I started my own company because it gave my face a little more age. And during COVID, particularly during COVID, when we were doing lots of calls and Zoom meetings and so on, it worked in my favor because people who I would never have gotten space in the room with before are hearing a voice now, and they're not seeing a face. They're hearing a voice and hearing the value and the knowledge behind the voice and not necessarily seeing the person before them. So then afterward, you make these introductions or you meet them in person and you can almost immediately feel the room change when they're like, oh, this is the person I was talking to. Well, I no longer feel the same way. I'm not necessarily keen on giving you the same that we had agreed on before or giving you the same sets of responsibilities because I don't have the same trust, even though I've gotten you to this stage. Again, that's just a question for me. Where have you drawn the line? Because for me, it was, forget Barbados, I've taken my skill sets elsewhere. At the same time, I don't want to do that. And just this call alone has highlighted the fact that there is a need for people like me. I do a lot of, as I said, I'm a logistics professional. And I do a lot of business development in this industry for people who want to either get into the markets that I've established, whether it be warehouses in or trade lanes and channels elsewhere, or helping people overseas get into the Caribbean market.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to disadvantage or turn my back on people in Barbados, the people like Catherine, because of the bad experiences that I've had in the past. And yes, Keithan and Catherine will get that exposure or that assistance through a platform like this. But there are obviously lots of other people who need that, but I pretty much stopped marketing to people locally. I have no interest in doing it. Sorry, go ahead.
You are the owner of your company?
Yes.
What does your business card say?
Director.
Okay. Director of what?
Business development.
Okay. Here's why I'm saying that to you. I've had people give me business cards before that they said managing director and CEO. And I'm like, okay, so how many people work for you? And it was just them. And I was like, you got to get 2 titles to manage yourself.
Right, got you.
My business cards never say what is supposed to be reserved for a boardroom. So you see, like business development specialist, that's what's going to be on my business card. You're not going to see senior partner or founding partner on my business card because that means nothing to them on the outside there.
In a situation like that, then, does it make more sense? Because I've realized that Barbados really isn't a meritocracy that we try to portray. And if it is, I've used these same business cards elsewhere and have not gotten the limitations or the resistance that I have in Barbados. Should I then use or brand myself differently for Barbados? He's saying whether it be logistics professional or something along those lines.
You can do that, yes. That's one of the things that you needed to do. And you probably might need to raise your fees because Barbados also has this mindset that good thing to cheap, cheap thing to good. And if your fees are too low, they're not going to use your services.
Right. But as it stands, I'm not the cheapest person, but I'm also not going to, I understand the person that my service caters for, and I'm not going to price myself in a place that doesn't allow for the people that need my services to not be able to afford them.
No, I understand you. The other thing too is that what you got to position yourself as is always a representative of the company and never the owner.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, you'll find that people will be working for you. You can write a job letter for them. They can go get funding. But then you need to get funding yourself and you can't get any. It's like one of the things of understanding the regulations of the market within which you operate. So if I'm going for funding, I never put on anything that I am anything owner of the business. I'm always an employee of the business. You understand?
Richard?
Yeah.
So my business card says designer.
Hmm.
even though I own my business and whatever. And
Yeah,
I don't intend to change that. I want to keep it as designer.
correct.
But I wanted to commiserate with Chad because I live your life and I live it every day in Barbados. I got extremely frustrated, Chad, when I was looking for the distribution to be done. And I remember talking to a customs broker because I was trying to do a one-stop shop, like example for the components, have that person deal with my paperwork, etc., but also have that person be a guide to help me with the documentation that I need for when the products are coming in to be held in the bond. And I thought we had a really reasonable conversation. He asked me what I wanted to do. I said, but look, I'm a designer, I'm a creator. I can manage every single thing to do with the production, the costing, all of those things I need to produce the item. Where I don't want to have to deal with is the distribution, but I still want to have a knowledge of the distribution. That's why I was looking to use the particular software that I spoke about earlier, whereby I would have it on my computer. It would be in the distribution warehouse and it would also link to the website. Anyway, got off the phone with this guy who's the head. He has his own brokerage company and spoke to my webmaster because he said he would have to speak to my webmaster in order to tell him what things he would need to do. So my webmaster and I were in an open conversation in Teams, Microsoft Teams, because we use that to communicate and for passing documents and stuff to make it easier for us to work as a group. And he had the guy on speaker, and the guy was so derogatory about what I wanted to do. Oh, this woman thinks that she can this, but she don't understand this. And she don't know that this is customs, and she don't know how difficult this is going to be, and she don't know that. And I said to myself, well, this is so interesting that I heard this, because one of the challenges that I face in Barbados, I try not to overplay my knowledge because it offends some people. And because of that, I've not gotten, I think, to where I would have liked to have been right now. But by the same token, I am the fish that swims in the opposite direction to everybody. I like to try new things. I always like to challenge myself.
You're a
And so
contrarian.
getting this,
You're a contrarian.
most definitely.
Yeah,
But what happened is that I am never comfortable, if that makes sense to you. I'm never comfortable. When I've set a goal and I reach that position in terms of the business, I want to say, okay, what's the next step? And so I find it very difficult in Barbados. One of the things that I find is a real problem is that people always say it can't be done, or this is too difficult. And instead of saying, well, how can we make this work?
Yep. Customs has a very particular and archaic mindset as well. And one experience that I had the week before I left was I was trying to help out a client that I had who needed to meet a deadline, and she was doing something in the port and had a shipment at the airport. So I personally went to assist and to get the thing cleared. Had everything that could possibly be needed. And this much older officer, who it was very obvious he wasn't quite sure about how to go about navigating the new Ascuda World system that we have. It was blatantly obvious. And me trying to assist him, not only to try to get through this faster, because I also have things to do, but me trying to assist him, his response to me after the second time that I told him what information he needed to put into what fields, young man, I spent 40 years in customs. You can come and tell me how to do my job.
Yeah,
in doing so, he then called into the office of the agent. One of the ladies came out and did exactly what I told him to do, which means that it was 37 minutes that he stood there wasting my time and his time and everybody else's time behind me, because he had the thought process that I am not, one, on his level, or two, able to tell him what to do, as opposed to just maybe trying what was said and would have gotten through much faster. Now, customs have that in their heads and they are long to themselves. Like,
and they're crazy. They're crazy about it. Yeah,
but it shouldn't be a deterrent. Unfortunately, it has been a deterrent for a lot of people. There are projects that I've consulted on or tried to get to happen in Barbados, and just off of the conversations that were had, people were like, "No, this is going to be too much." And they went to places like St. Lucia, Antigua, and they have no interest in Barbados because of that culture in and of itself. But I just wanted to find out from Richard, to what extent and degree has he allowed the culture to change who he is and how he markets himself, etc. But what features or what mitigating factors did he put in place to deal with it?
one of the philosophies that I have, right, Chad? I believe a jet ski could turn around faster than a Titanic. And what I have done, especially in the early years when I was a tad bit younger, not much, but just a tad bit, I would outwork anyone. I recently just was dealing with one of the technical assistance entities, and I found out that they were taking a particular approach that I didn't like because I didn't see it benefiting SMEs really in the way that I thought it should. I thought that a lot of people would be left out. And I went on, there's another program called Telegram, which is something like WhatsApp, but better. And you can have groups and you can also have channels. The channels allow you to broadcast things and the groups allow you to interact. And I set up something called Caribbean SMEs Group. And on there, each group could hold up to 200,000 people. And we've got people from all the way in Canada, all the way down to Guyana and everything in between. And we have exchanges whereby we discuss just about anything. And people are finding, just like how some of you found here today, that you can discuss topics and people are willing to help you and not charge you. You can do that up inside of there. Create synergies whereby you can do cross-border trading and all that sort of thing. And then if you enter into financial relationships as you see fit, and coming down the group and discussing things on a day-to-day basis and everything like that is for free. You will find when you take the initiative, one of the things you also got to do, Chad, is that work for me is to write. I would write blogs, I would write on social media, things that I think would help the people that can be my prospects. And when I do business with them and they see me face to face, they would recognize that, listen, I'm just a representative of my entity, but there's another team back behind there who does all the work, but you wouldn't meet them. And that way, they can say, oh, he's just a young fella, but you got a team behind you. He's just the person that we can see. So just position yourself as the front person, and they don't need to know the rest of your team. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, Richard. Thanks for that.
That has worked for me and paid dividends. The other thing about it is that when I speak, I wasn't allowed to speak Bajan when I was growing up. My mom was a stickler for English, and she says that if you speak it, you'll write it. So I only learned to speak Bajan after coming back to Barbados. And I guess it was necessary to learn that because I could speak fluent Jamaican patois. And when I spoke on the phone to some people, they didn't think that I was a local. And because of the way how I speak, they didn't think that I was even Black. And then when I turned up in the meeting and they realized it was too late because they liked me already. So you got to conduct yourself professionally in all the things that you do. Let them see you as a professional and as a representative of your organization. And they will see you then as a promising young man going places as opposed to this a young upstart.
I understand you, but nothing has transpired even before or since then. Even if I gave them a bio or give anybody a bio, there's nothing that tells you that this is a young star or that I'm trying to overplay my hand or anything. That is just literally stuff that I've done. And I experienced the same thing that you would have experienced, where the way that you speak or whatever is, or as you mentioned my voice before, it's difficult to imagine a young face with the way that I speak and the voice that I have.
One of the things, now, Chad, that works for me, many years before COVID started, I started meeting people physically. By the time COVID came in, anybody who wants to meet me physically would have to pay me premium. I've stopped doing that about 8 years now. Like this online training that I'm doing now, I've been doing this ever since. The way how I'm doing the training materials where you're seeing everything like prepared online and there's a toolkit and all, I've been doing this for years. I build entire websites for training. So you always got to be ahead. When people are thinking about it, you're already out in front of them.
I do think the way that brand myself though is going to be incredibly important. And thank you for that suggestion. I might very well just change the
Yeah, man. And you can always get in contact with me anytime.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah. That's all about. Just pay it forward because somebody else can come up younger than you too that can experience the same problems.
Absolutely. Right. And since particularly with these issues that I've been experiencing, there are other people who have had an interest in logistics and supply chain management that we've almost started to form a little bit of a co-op, if you will, where we just exchange ideas and talk about experiences and see how we can best get through them. These kinds of suggestions are not only important, helping them as well if they choose to.
But this is the way going forward, you know. And the other thing too, I don't know how old you are, but this is the age of the millennials, where millennials don't take no forces from nobody because they're not afraid of anything. If a millennial is working with you, they don't like the way you're working, they're gone. They ain't coming back tomorrow. Because as far as they're concerned, once they learn what they have to learn, they're gone. They don't need to come back around you again. They were going to set up.
Agreed. Or they just set up and pursue a market elsewhere, then you end up of subpar or substandard. Because the amount of people that have found themselves either having to ask a question of me afterward or get somebody to get in touch with me, or I would just see the name of the company and be like, oh, well, this is somebody who reached out with me before and they went through a third party who ended up coming to me anyway. You realize that there really aren't that many options out there. And young people are just deciding, okay, I'm packing up and moving my skill sets elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then you end up with people who you're probably going to have to pay extra now because they're going to enlist the services of the same person who was at your door in the first place.
Exactly right. So what I wanted to do here is to talk about functioning in on-tap market. What's happening is that we speak a lot about marketing, but a lot of people just don't know how to prospect. And when you're prospecting, you've got to know who is a qualified up for you. And you see that here, you find up, which means unlimited potential. You don't know how many opportunities are in that person's purview to do business with you. You don't know how deep their pockets are. You don't know any of those things. So then you have got to go through a system of dialogue where you find out if this person fits within your qualifications of who you want to do business with. I worked in a field called timeshare many years ago in another lifetime. When we sat down at the end of the day, we would analyze all the people who came in, all the customers who came in. And from that information, we looked at who bought the most, who didn't buy, and then reasons why they didn't buy. And from there, we would formulate a system of qualifications so that what you're trying to do is to create a system where you make maximum sales within the time frame that you do have. And anybody who did not fit within those parameters, you did not deal with them at all. You excuse them from having to meet with them. So you only spend your time in the places where you're likely to be most profitable and most productive. By analyzing your sales, you looked at things like closing percentage, you look at the volume in terms of the sales volume. And then when we look at the customer dynamics, were they married, single? Did they pay by check, credit card? What were they able to pay? What was their spend? How often do they reload business? Those are things that you look at, and you have all that information documented. You can put it all in a database so that then you can pull it at a moment's notice, and demographics, psychographics, and all those other metrics that you need to look at in order to determine who is going to be a successful prospect for your business. So before you meet them, they're a suspect. When you start to interact with them, they're a prospect. Then you get in there with them and you enter into a commercial relationship with you. Then that's a customer or a client. You also have to keep on looking at who else is in the market, who is out there competing with you. Earlier on, I spoke about the ocean of marketers, and where I spoke about the red ocean and the blue ocean. So I have material there in hyperlink. And then I had a case study here where I wanted you to go and look at, what potential do you see here when you look at the ocean of marketers, when you look at all the information that you have. You got to look at how do you see yourselves developing. What cooperative strategy would you like to develop with the mentioned entity? So I had the scale of what Amazon is doing here and how they handle some of the surplus things that are not sold. I'll let you guys watch this and you could always come back to me. And then you look at money, marketing, operations, legal, and pulling them all together. So then based upon your current knowledge now that you would have had today, along with what you had from before, how can these areas help you build your business? And then you got to look at researching the aforementioned areas. How can your business benefit from a more planned approach, and why? So these are the things that you have got to look at. You've got to look at your why. I have come to the end. I want to thank you today for the opportunity to share with you. And I hope that something that I said made sense, and that by making sense, you guys will be able to make dollars, and that you'll be able to grow your businesses, set your goals clearly and tangibly, and realize your efforts that you're putting into your businesses on a daily basis.
The recording will be made available. I'll post on LinkedIn where it will be, but we will likely be sharing it on Facebook and on Richard's YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.